This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, visit LibriVox.org. Beowulf, translated by Francis Barton Gamere. Section 7. That way he went with no will of his own, in danger of life, to the dragon's hoard, but for pressure of peril, some prince's thane. He fled in fear the fatal scourge, seeking shelter, a sinful man, and entered in. At the awful sight tottered that guest, and terror seized him. Yet the wretched fugitive rallied anon from fright and fear ere he fled away, and took the cup from that treasure hoard. Of such, besides, there was store enough, heirlooms old, the earth below, which some earl forgotten in ancient years left the last of his lofty race, heedfully there had hidden away dearest treasure. For death of yore had hurried all hence, and he alone left to live, the last of the clan, weeping his friends, yet wished to bide warding the treasure, his one delight, though brief his respite. The barrow, new ready, to strand and sea waves stood anear, hard by the headland, hidden and closed. There laid within it his lordly heirlooms, and heaped hoard of heavy gold that warden of rings. Few words he spake. Now hold thou earth, since heroes may not, what earls have owned. Lo, erst from thee brave men brought it, but battle death seized, and cruel killing my clansmen all, robbed them of life and a liegeman's joys. None have I left to lift the sword, or to cleanse the carven cup of price, beaker bright. My brave are gone, and the helmet hard, all haughty with gold, shall part from its plating. Polishers sleep who could brighten and burnish the battle mask, and those weeds of war that were wont to brave over bicker of shields the bite of steel rust with their bearer. The ringed mail fares not far with famous chieftain at side of hero. No harp's delight, no gleewood's gladness, no good hawk now flies through the hall, nor horses fleet stamp in the burgstead. Battle and death, the flower of my race, have reft away. Mournful of mood, thus he moaned his woe, alone for them all, and unblithe wept by day and by night, till death's fell wave o'erwhelmed his heart. His hoard of bliss that old ill-doer open found, who, blazing at twilight, the barrows haunteth. Naked foe-dragon flying by night, folded in fire. The folk of earth dread him sore. 'Tis his doom to seek hoard in the graves, and heathen gold to watch, many-wintered. Nor wins he thereby. Powerful this plague of the people, thus held the house of the hoard in earth 300 winters, till one aroused wrath in his breast, to the ruler bearing that costly cup, and the king implored for bond of peace. So the barrow was plundered, borne off was booty. His boon was granted that wretched man, and his ruler saw first time what was fashioned in far off days. When the dragon awoke, new woe was kindled. O'er the stone he snuffed. The stark heart found footprint of foe, who so far had gone in his hidden craft by the creature's head. So may the undoomed easily flee evils and exile, if only he gain the grace of the wielder. That warden of gold o'er the ground went seeking, greedy to find the man who wrought him such wrong in sleep. Savage and burning, the barrow he circled all without, nor was any there, none in the waste. Yet war he desired, was eager for battle. The barrow he entered, sought the cup, and discovered soon that some one of the mortals had searched his treasure, his lordly gold. The guardian waited, ill enduring, till evening came. Boiling with wrath was the barrow's keeper, and fain with flame the foe to pay for the dear cup's loss. Now day was fled, as the worm had wished. By its wall no more was it glad to bide, but burning flew folded in flame, a fearful beginning for sons of the soil, and soon it came, in the doom of their lord, to a dreadful end. Then the baleful fiend its fire belched out, and bright homes burned. The blaze stood high, all landsfolk frighting. No living thing would that loathly one leave, as aloft it flew. Wide was the dragon's warring seen, its fiendish fury far and near, as the grim destroyer those Geatish people hated and hounded. To hidden lair, to its hoard it hastened at hint of dawn. Folk of the land it had lapped in flame, with bale and brand. In its barrow it trusted, its battling and bulwarks. That boast was vain. To Beowulf, then, the bale was told quickly and truly. The king's own home, of buildings the best, in brand waves melted, the gift throne of Geats. To the good old man, sad in heart, 'twas heaviest sorrow. The sage assumed that his sovereign god he had angered, breaking ancient law, and embittered the lord. His breast within with black thoughts welled, as his wont was never. The folk's own fastness that fiery dragon with flame had destroyed, and the stronghold all washed by waves. But the warlike king, prince of the waiters, plotted vengeance. Warriors' bulwark he bade them work all of iron, the earl's commander, a war-shield wondrous. Well he knew that forest wood against fire were worthless. Linden could aid not. Atheling brave, he was fated to finish this fleeting life, his days on earth, and the dragon with him, though long it had watched o'er the wealth of the hoard. Shame he reckoned, sharer of rings, to follow the flyer afar with a host, a broad-flung band. Nor the battle feared he, nor deemed he dreadful the dragon's warring, its vigour and valour. Ventures desperate he had passed a plenty, and perils of war, contest crash, since, conqueror proud, Hrothgar's hall he had wholly purged, and in grapple had killed the kin of Grendel, loathsome breed. Not least was that of hand-to-hand fights with Hygelac fell, when the ruler of Geats, in rush of battle, lord of his folk in the Frisian land, son of Hrethel, by sword draughts died, by brands down beaten. Thence Beowulf fled, through strength of himself and his swimming power, though alone, and his arms were laden with 30 coats of mail, when he came to the sea. Nor yet might Hetwaras haughtily boast their craft of contest, who carried against him shields to the fight. But few escaped from strife with the hero to their homes. Then swam over ocean Ecgtheow's son, lonely and sorrowful, seeking his land, where Hygd made him offer of hoard and realm, rings and royal seat, reckoning not the strength of her son, to save their kingdom from hostile hordes after Hygelac's death. No sooner for this could the stricken ones in any wise move that atheling's mind over young Heardred's head as lord and ruler of all the realm to be. Yet the hero upheld him with helpful words, aided in honour, till, older grown, he wielded the Weder Geats. Wandering exiles sought him o'er the seas, the sons of Ohtere, who had spurned the sway of the Scylfing's helmet, the bravest and best that broke the rings, in Swedish land, of the sea-king's line, haughty hero. Hence Heardred's end. For shelter he gave them, sword death came, the blade's fell blow, to bairn of Hygelac. But the son of Ongentheow sought again house and home when Heardred fell, leaving Beowulf lord of Geats, and gift seat's master, a good king he. The fall of his lord he was fain to requite in after days, and to Eadgils he proved friend to the friendless, and forces sent over the sea to the son of Ohtere, weapons and warriors. Well repaid he those care-paths cold, when the king he slew. Thus, safe through struggles, the son of Ecgtheow had passed a plenty, through perils dire, with daring deeds, till this day was come that doomed him now with the dragons to strive. With comrades 11, the lord of Geats, swollen in rage, went seeking the dragon. He had heard whence all the harm arose, and the killing of clansmen. That cup of price on the lap of the lord had been laid by the finder. In the throng was this one 13th man, starter of all the strife and ill, care-laden captive, cringing thence, forced and reluctant, he led them on till he came in ken of that cavern hall. The barrow delved near billowy surges, flood of ocean. Within 'twas full of wire gold and jewels, a jealous warden, warrior trusty, the treasures held, lurked in his lair. Nor light the task of entrance for any of the earth-born men. Sat on the headland the hero king, spake words of hail to his hearth companions, gold friend of Geats. All gloomy his soul, wavering, death-bound. Weird full nigh ready stood to greet the gray-haired man, to seize his soul-hoard, sunder apart life and body. Not long would be the warrior spirit enwound with flesh. Beowulf spake, the bairn of Ecgtheow. Through store of struggles I strove in youth, mighty feuds, I mind them all. I was 7 years old when the sovereign of rings, friend of his folk, from my father took me, had me, and held me, Hrethel the king, with food and fee, faithful in kinship. Ne'er while I lived there he loathlier found me, bairn in the burg, than his birthright sons Herbeld and Hasinth and Hygelac mine. For the eldest of these, by unmeet chance, by kinsman's deed, was the death-bed strewn, when Hasinth killed him with horny bow, his own dear liege laid low with an arrow, missed the mark, and his mate shot down, one brother the other, with bloody shaft. A feeless fight, and a fearful sin, horror to Hrethel. Yet, hard as it was, unavenged must the atheling die. Too awful it is for an aged man to bide and bear that his bairn so young rides on the gallows. A rhyme he makes, sorrow song for his son there hanging as rapture of ravens. No rescue now can come from the old disabled man. Still is he minded, as his morning breaks, of the heir gone elsewhere. Another he hopes not he will bide to see his burg within, as ward for his wealth, now the one has found doom of death that the deed incurred. Forlorn he looks on the lodge of his son, wine-hall, waste, and wind-swept chambers reft of revel. The writer sleepeth, the hero far hidden. No harp resounds, in the courts no wassail, as once was heard. Then he goes to his chamber, a grief-song chants alone for his lost. Too large all seems, homestead and house. So the helmet of Weders hid in his heart for Herebeald waves of woe. No way could he take to avenge on the slayer slaughter so foul, nor e'en could he harass that hero at all with loathing deed, though he loved him not. And so, for the sorrow his soul endured, men's gladness he gave up, and God's light chose. Lands and cities he left his sons, as the wealthy do, when he went from earth. There was strife and struggle twixt Swede and Geat over the width of waters. War arose, hard battle horror, when Hrethel died and Ongentheow's offspring grew strife-keen, bold, nor brooked o'er the seas pact of peace, but pushed their boats to harass in hatred Rosnaborth. Men of my folk for that feud had vengeance, for woeful war 'tis widely known, though one of them bought it with blood of his own heart, a bargain hard, for Heftson proved fatal that fray for the first of Geats. At morn, I heard, was the murderer killed by kinsman for kinsman, with clash of sword, when Ongentheow met Eofor there. Wide split the war-helm, wan he fell hoary Skilfing. The hand that smote him of feud was mindful, nor flinched from the death blow. For all that he gave me, my gleaming sword repaid him at war. Such power I wielded, for lordly treasure. With land he entrusted me, homestead and house. He had no need from Swedish realm, or from Spear-Dane folk, or from the men of gifts, to get him help, some warrior worse for wage to buy. Ever I fought in the front of all, soul to the fore, and so shall I fight while I bide in life, and this blade shall last that early and late hath loyal proved, since for my doughtiness Dagfrin fell, slain by my hand, the Hugas champion, nor fared he thence to the Frisian king with the booty back, and breast adornments, but, slain in struggle, that standard-bearer fell, atheling brave. Not with blade was he slain, but his bones were broken by brawny gripe, his heart-waves stifled. The sword-edge now, hard blade, and my hand, for the horde shall strive. Beowulf spake, and a battle vow made his last of all. I have lived through many wars in my youth. Now, once again, old folk defender, feud will I seek, do doughty deeds, if the dark destroyer forth from his cavern come to fight me. Then hailed he the helmeted heroes all, for the last time greeting his liegemen dear, comrades of war. I should carry no weapon, nor sword to the serpent, if sure I knew how, with such enemy, else my vows I could gain as I did in Grendel's day. But fire in this fight I must fear me now, and poisonous breath, so I bring with me breastplate and board. From the barrow's keeper no foot-breadth flee I. One fight shall end our war by the wall, as weird allots, all mankind's master. My mood is bold, but forbears to boast o'er this battling flyer. Now, abide by the barrow, ye breastplate mailed, ye heroes in harness. Which of us twain better from the battle rush bear his wounds? Wait ye the finish. The fight is not yours, nor meet for any but me alone, to measure might with this monster here and play the hero. Hardily I shall win that wealth, or war shall seize, cruel killing, your king and lord. Up stood then with shield the sturdy champion, stayed by the strength of his single manhood, and hardy 'neath helmet his harness bore, under cleft of the cliffs no coward's path. Soon spied by the wall that warrior chief, survivor of many a victory field, where foemen fought with furious clashings in arch of stone, and within a stream that broke from the barrow. The brooklet's wave was hot with fire. The horde that way he never could hope unharmed to near, or endure those deeps, for the dragon's flame. Then let from his breast, for he burst with rage, the Wader Gate prince a word outgo, stormed the stark heart, stern went ringing and clear his cry 'neath the cliff rocks gray. The horde guard heard a human voice, his rage was enkindled. No respite now for pact of peace. The poison breath of that foul worm first came forth from the cave, hot reek of fight. The rocks resounded. Stout by the stone way his shield he raised, lord of the gates, against the loathed one, while with courage keen that coiled foe came seeking strife. The sturdy king had drawn his sword, not dull of edge, heirloom old, and each of the two felt fear of his foe, though fierce their mood. Stoutly stood with his shield high raised the warrior king, as the worm now coiled together amain. The mailed one waited. Now, spire by spire, fast sped and glided that blazing serpent. The shield protected, soul and body a shorter while, for the hero king than his heart desired. Could his will have wielded the welcome respite but once in his life. But Weird denied it, and victory's honours. His arm he lifted, lord of the gates, the grim foe smote with atheling's heirloom. Its edge was turned brown blade on the bone, and bit more feebly than its noble master had need of then, in his baleful stress. Then the barrow's keeper waxed full wild for that weighty blow, cast deadly flames, wide drove and far those vicious fires. No victor's glory the gate's lord boasted, his brand had failed, naked in battle, as never it should, excellent iron. 'Twas no easy path that Ecgtheow's honored heir must tread o'er the plain to the place of the foe, for against his will he must win a home elsewhere far, as must all men, leaving this lapsing life. Not long it was ere those champions grimly closed again. The hoard guard was heartened, high heaved his breast once more, and by peril was pressed again, enfolded in flames, the folk commander. Nor yet about him his bands of comrades, son of athelings, armed stood with warlike front. To the woods they bent them, their lives to save, but the soul of one with care was cumbered. Kinship true can never be marred in a noble mind. Wiglaf his name was, Weohstan's son, linden thane loved, the lord of Scilfings, Aelfr's kinsman. His king he now saw with heat under helmet hard oppressed. He minded the prizes his prince had given him, wealthy seat of Waegmund's line, and folk rights that his father owned. Not long he lingered. The linden yellow, his shield, he seized, the old sword he drew, as heirloom of Eanmund, earth-dwellers knew it, who was slain by the sword edge, son of Ohtere. Friendless exiled, erst in fray killed by Weohstan, who won for his kin brown bright helmet, breastplate ringed, old sword of Jotun's, Onela's gift, weeds of war of the warrior's thane. Battle gear brave, though a brother's child had been felled, the feud was unfelt by Onela. For winters this war gear Weohstan kept, breastplate and board, till his bairn had grown earlship to earn as the old sire did. Then he gave him, mid gates, the gear of battle, portion huge, when he passed from life, fared aged forth. For the first time now, with his leader lord, the liegeman young was bidden to share the shock of battle. Neither softened his soul, nor the sire's bequest weakened in war. So the worm found out when once in fight the foes had met. Wiglaf spake, and his words were sage, sad in spirit. He said to his comrades, I remember the time when mead we took, what promise we made to this prince of ours in the banquet hall, to our breaker of rings. For gear of combat to him give requital, for hard sword and helmet, if hap should bring stress of this sort. Himself who chose us from all his army to aid him now, urged us to glory, and gave these treasures, because he counted us keen with the spear and hardy 'neath helm, though this hero work our leader hoped unhelped and alone to finish for us. Folk defender, who hath got him glory greater than all men for daring deeds. Now the day is come that our noble master has need of the might of warriors stout. Let us stride along the hero to help, while the heat is about him glowing and grim. For God is my witness, I am far more fain the fire should seize along with my lord these limbs of mine. Unsuiting it seems our shields to bear homeward hence, save here we essay to fell the foe and defend the life of the Weders' lord. I wot 'twere shame on the law of our land, if alone the king out of Geatish warriors woe endured and sank in the struggle. My sword and helmet, breastplate and board, for us both shall serve. Through slaughter reek strode he to succour his chieftain, his battle helm bore, and brief words spake. Beowulf dearest, do all bravely, as in youthful days of yore thou vowedst, that while life should last thou wouldst let no wise thy glory droop. Now, great in deeds, atheling steadfast, with all thy strength, shield thy life. I will stand to help thee. At the words the worm came once again, murderous monster mad with rage, with fire billows flaming, its foes to seek, the hated men. In heat waves burned that board to the boss, and the breastplate failed to shelter at all the spear-thane young. Yet quickly under his kinsman's shield went eager the earl, since his own was now all burned by the blaze. The bold king again had mind of his glory. With might his glaive was driven into the dragon's head, blow nerved by hate. But Naegling was shivered, broken in battle was Beowulf's sword, old and grey. 'Twas granted him not that ever the edge of iron at all could help him at strife. Too strong was his hand, so the tale is told, and he tried too far with strength of stroke all swords he wielded, though sturdy their steel. They steadied him not. Then for the third time thought on its feud that folk destroyer, fire-dread dragon, and rushed on the hero, where room allowed. Battle grim, burning, its bitter teeth closed on his neck, and covered him with waves of blood from his breast that welled. End of section 7. Read by Dennis Sayers in Modesto, California for LibriVox. Fall 2006.
This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information, or to volunteer, visit LibriVox.org. Recorded by Kirsten Ferreri. Los Angeles, California, August 2006. Beowulf. Translated by Francis Barton Gumer. Section 8. 'Twas now, men say, in his sovereign's need that the earl made known his noble strain, craft and keenness and courage enduring. Heedless of harm, though his hand was burned, hardy-hearted he helped his kinsman. A little lower the loathsome beast he smote with his sword. His steel drove in bright and burnished. That blaze began to lose and lessen. At last the king wielded his wits again, war-knife drew, a biting blade by his breastplate hanging, and the wetter's helm's smoke that warm asunder felled the foe, flung forth its life. So had they killed it, kinsmen both, athelings twain. Thus an earl should be in danger's day. Of deeds of valor this conqueror's hour of the king was last, of his work in the world. The wound began which that dragon of earth had erst inflicted to swell and smart, and soon he found in his breast was boiling, baleful and deep, pain of poison. The prince walked on, wise in his thought, to the wall of rock, then sat and stared at the structure of giants where arch of stone and steadfast column upheld for ever that hall in earth. Yet here must the hand of the henchman peerless lave with water his winsome lord, the king and conqueror covered with blood, with struggle spent, and unspan his helmet. Beowulf spake in spite of his hurt, his mortal wound. Full well he knew his portion now was past and gone of earthly bliss, and all had fled of his file of days, and death was near. I would fain bestow on son of mine this gear of war, were given me now that any heir should after me come of my proper blood. This people I ruled 50 winters. No folk king was there, none at all, of the neighbouring clans, who war would wage me with warriors' friends, and threaten me with horrors. At home I bided what fate might come, and I cared for mine own. Feuds I sought not, nor falsely swore ever on oath. For all these things, though fatally wounded, fain am I. From the ruler of man no wrath shall seize me, when life from my frame must flee away for killing of kinsmen. Now quickly go and gaze on that hoard 'neath the hoary rock. Wiglaf loved, now the worm lies low, sleeps, heartsore, of his spoil bereaved. And fare in haste, I would fain behold the gorgeous heirlooms, golden store, have joy in the jewels and gems, lay down softlier for sight of this splendid hoard my life and lordship I long have held. I have heard that swiftly the son of Weohstan, at wish and word of his wounded king, war-sick warrior, woven mail coat, battle sark, bore 'neath the barrow's roof. Then the clansman keen, of conquest proud, passing the seat, saw store of jewels and glistening gold the ground along. By the wall were marvels, and many a vessel in the den of the dragon, the dawn-flyer old. Unburnished bowls of bygone men, reft of richness, rusty helms of the olden age, and arm-rings many wondrously roven. Such wealth of gold, booty from barrow, can burden with pride each human wight, let him hide it who will. His glance too fell on a gold-wove banner, high o'er the hoard, of handiwork noblest, brilliantly broidered. So bright its gleam, all the earth-floor he easily saw, and viewed all these vessels. No vestige now was seen of the serpent. The sword had taken him. Then I heard the hill of its hoard was reft, old work of giants, by one alone. He burdened his bosom with beakers and plate at his own good will, and the ensign took, brightest of beacons. The blade of his lord, its edge was iron, had injured deep one that had guarded the golden hoard many a year, and its murder fires spread hot round the barrow in horror billows at midnight hour, till it met its doom. Hastened the herald, the hoard so spurred him his track to retrace. He was troubled by doubt, high-souled hero, if haply he'd find alive where he left him the lord of waiters, weakening fast by the wall of the cave. So he carried the load. His lord and king he found all bleeding, famous chief at the lapse of life. The liegeman again plashed him with water, till point of word broke through the breast-hoard. Beowulf spake, sage and sad, as he stared at the gold. For the gold and treasure, to God my thanks, to the wielder of wonders, with words I say, for what I behold, to heaven's Lord, for the grace that I give such gifts to my folk, or ever the day of my death be run. Now I've bartered here for booty of treasure the last of my life, so look ye well to the needs of my land. No longer I tarry. A barrow bid ye the battle-fand raise for my ashes. 'Twill shine by the shore of the flood, to folk of mine memorial fair on Hrone's headland high uplifted, that ocean wanderers oft may hail Beowulf's barrow, as back from far they drive their keels o'er the darkling wave. From his neck he unclasped the collar of gold, valorous king, to his vassal gave it, with bright gold helmet, breastplate, and ring to the youthful thane, bade him use them in joy. Thou art end and remnant of all our race the Wagmunding name, for word hath swept them, all my line, to the land of doom, earls in their glory. I after them go. This word was the last which the wise old man harboured in heart, ere hot death-waves of balefire he chose. From his bosom fled his soul to seek the saints' reward. It was heavy hap for that hero young on his lord beloved to look, and find him lying on earth with life at end. Sorrowful sight! But the slayer too, awful earth-dragon, empty of breath, lay felled in fight, nor fain of its treasure could the writhing monster rule it more. For edges of iron had ended its days, hard and battle-sharp, hammers leaving, and that flyer afar had fallen to the ground, hushed by its hurt, its hoard all near, no longer lusty aloft to whirl at midnight, making its merriment scene, proud of its prizes; prone it sank by the handiwork of the hero-king. Forsooth, among folk but few achieve, though sturdy and strong, as stories tell me, and never so daring in deed of valour, the perilous breath of a poisoned foe to brave, and to rush on the ring-board hall, whenever his watch the warden keeps bold in the barrow. Beowulf paid the price of death for that precious hoard, and each of the foes had found the end of this fleeting life. Befell ere long, that the laggards in war the wood had left, troth-breakers, cowards, 10 together, fearing before to flourish a spear in the sore distress of their sovereign lord. Now in their shame their shields they carried, armour of fight, where the old man lay, and they gazed on Wiglaf. Wearied he sat at his sovereign's shoulder, shieldsman good, to wake him with water. Nowise it availed. Though well he wished it, in world no more could he barrier life for that leader of battles, nor baffle the will of all-wielding God. Doom of the Lord was law o'er the deeds of every man, as it is today. Grim was the answer, easy to get from the youth for those that had yielded to fear. Wiglaf spoke, the son of Weohstan; mournful he looked on those men unloved. Who sooth will speak, can say indeed that the ruler who gave you golden rings and the harness of war in which you stand, for he at ale-bench oftentimes bestowed on hall-folk helm and breastplate, lord to liegemen the likeliest gear which near or far he could find to give, threw away and wasted these weeds of battle on men who failed when the foemen came. Not at all could the king of his comrades in arms venture to vaunt, though the victory-wielder, God gave him grace that he got revenge sole with his sword in stress and need. To rescue his life 'twas little that I could serve him in struggle, yet shift I made, hopeless it seemed, to help my kinsman. Its strength ever waned when with weapon I struck that fatal foe, and the fire less strongly flowed from its head. Too few the heroes in throe of contest that thronged to our king. Now gift of treasure and girding of sword, joy of the house and home delight shall fail your folk. His freehold land every clansman within your kin shall lose and leave, when lords high-born hear afar of that flight of yours, a fameless deed. Yea, death is better for liegemen all than a life of shame. That battle-toil bade he at Burg to announce, at the fort on the cliff, where full of sorrow all the morning earls had sat, daring shieldsmen, in doubt of twain, would they wail as dead, or welcome home their lord beloved? Little kept back of the tidings knew, but told them all the herald that up the headland rode. Now the willing giver to wetter folk in death-bed lies, the lord of Geats on the slaughter-bed sleeps by the serpent's steed. And beside him is stretched that slayer of men with knife-wounds sick, no sword availed on the awesome thing in any wise to work a wound. There Wiglaf sitteth, Weohstan's bairn by Beowulf's side, the living earl by the other dead, and heavy of heart a head-watch keeps o'er friend and foe. Now our folk may look for waging of war when once unhidden to Frisian and Frank the fall of the king is spread afar. The strife began when hot on the Hugas Hygelac fell, and fared with his fleet to the Frisian land. Him there the Hetwaras humbled in war, plied with such prowess their power overwhelming, that the bold in battle bowed beneath it and fell in fight. To his friends nowise could that earl give treasure, and ever since the Merowings' favour has failed us wholly. Nor aught expect I of peace and faith from Swedish folk. 'Twas spread afar how Ongentheow reft at Ravenswood hike and wrestling of hope and life, when the folk of Geats for the first time sought in wanton pride the warlike Scylfings. Soon the sage old sire of Ohtere, ancient and awful, gave answering blow. The sea-king he slew, and his spouse redeemed, his good wife rescued, though robbed of her gold, mother of Ohtere and Onela. Then he followed his foes, who fled before him, sore beset, and stole their way, bereft of a ruler, to Ravenswood. With his host he besieged there what swords had left, the weary and wounded. Woes he threatened the whole night through to that hard-pressed throng. Some with the morrow his sword should kill, some should go to the gallows tree for rapture of ravens. But rescue came with dawn of day for those desperate men, when they heard the horn of Hygelac sound, tones of his trumpet. The trusty king had followed their trail with faithful band. The bloody swath of Swedes and Geats, and the storm of their strife were seen afar, how folk against folk the fight had wakened. The ancient king with his atheling band sought his citadel, sorrowing much. Ongentheow earl went up to his burg. He had tested Hygelac's hardihood, the proud one's prowess, would prove it no longer, defied no more those fighting wanderers, nor hoped from the seamen to save his hoard, his bairn, and his bride. So he bent him again, old, to his earth walls. Yet after him came with slaughter for Swedes the standards of Hygelac over peaceful plains in pride advancing, till Hrethelings fought in the fenced town. Then Ongentheow with edge of sword, the hoary-bearded, was held at bay, and the folk-king there was forced to suffer Eofor's anger. In ire, at the king Wulf Wonreding with weapon struck, and the chieftain's blood for that blow in streams flowed 'neath his hair. No fear felt he, stout old Scylfing, but straightway repaid in better bargain that bitter stroke, and faced his foe with fell intent. Nor swift enough was the son of Wonred answer to render the aged chief. Too soon on his head the helm was cloven, blood bedecked he bowed to earth, and fell adown. Not doomed was he yet, and well he waxed, though the wound was sore. Then the hardy Hygelac thane, when his brother fell, with broad brand smote, giant's sword crashing through giant's helm across the shield wall. Sank the king, his folk's old herdsman, fatally hurt. There were many to bind the brother's wounds and lift him, fast as fate allowed, his people to wield the place of war. But Eofor took from Ongentheow, earl from other, the iron breastplate, hard sword hilted, and helmet too, and the hoar-chief's harness to Hygelac carried, who took the trappings, and truly promised rich fee mid folk, and fulfilled it so. For that grim strike gave the Geatish lord, Hrethel's offspring, when home he came, to Eofor and Wulf a wealth of treasure. Each of them had 100,000 in land and linked rings, nor at less price reckoned mid-earth men such mighty deeds, and to Eofor he gave his only daughter, in pledge of grace, the pride of his home. Such is the feud, the foeman's rage, death-hate of men, so I deem it sure that the Swedish folk will seek us home for this fall of their friends, the fighting Scylfings. When once they learn that our warrior leader lifeless lies, who land and hoard ever defended from all his foes, furthered his folk's will, finished his course a hardy hero. Now haste is best, that we go to gaze on our Geatish lord, and bear the bountiful breaker of rings to the funeral pyre. No fragments merely shall burn with the warrior. Wealth of jewels, gold untold and gained in terror, treasure at last with his life obtained. All of that booty the brands shall take, fire shall eat it. No earl must carry memorial jewel, no maiden fair shall wreathe her neck with noble ring. Nay, sad in spirit and shorn of her gold, oft shall she pass o'er paths of exile, now our lord all laughter has laid aside, all mirth and revel. Many a spear, morning cold, shall be clasped amain, lifted aloft, nor shall lilt of harp those warriors wake, but the wan-hued raven, fain o'er the fallen, his feast shall praise, and boast to the eagle how bravely he ate when he and the wolf were wasting the slain. So he told his sorrowful tidings, and little he lied, the loyal man, of word or of work. The warriors rose. Sad, they climbed to the cliff of eagles, went welling with tears the wonder to view. Found on the sand there, stretched at rest, their lifeless lord, who had lavished rings of old upon them. Ending day had dawned on the doughty one. Death had seized in woeful slaughter the Weders' king. There saw they, besides, the strangest being, loathsome, lying their leader near, prone on the field. The fiery dragon, fearful fiend, with flame was scorched. Reckoned by feet, it was 50 measures in length as it lay. Aloft erewhile it had revelled by night, and anon came back seeking its den. Now in death's sure clutch it had come to the end of its earth-hall joys. By it there stood the stoups and jars, dishes lay there, and dear-decked swords eaten with rust, as on earth's lap resting, 1,000 winters they waited there. For all that heritage huge, that gold of bygone men, was bound by a spell, so the treasure-hall could be touched by none of human kind, save that heaven's king, God himself, might give whom he would, helper of heroes, the hoard to open, even such a man as it seemed to him meet. Perilous path it proved, he trod who heinously hid that hall within, wealth under wall. Its watcher had killed one of a few, and the feud was avenged in woeful fashion. Wondrous seems it what manner a man of might and valour oft ends his life, when the earl no longer in mead-hall may live with loving friends. So Beowulf, when that barrow's warden he sought, and the struggle, himself knew not in what wise he should wend from the world at last. For princes potent, who placed the gold, with a curse to doomsday covered it deep, so that marked with sin the man should be, hedged with horrors, in hell-bounds fast, racked with plagues, who should rob their hoard. Yet no greed for gold, but the grace of heaven, ever had the king kept in view. Wiglaf spoke, the son of Weohstan. At the mandate of one, oft warriors many sorrow may suffer, and so must we. The people's shepherd showed not aught of care for our counsel, king beloved. That guardian of gold he should grapple not, urged we, but let him lie where he long had been, in his earth's hall, waiting at the end of the world, the hest of heaven. This hoard is ours, but grievously gotten, too grim the fate which thither carried our king and lord. I was within there, and all I viewed, the chambered treasure, when chance allowed me, and my path was made, in no pleasant wise, under the earth-wall. Eager, I seized such heap from the hoard as hands could bear, and hurriedly carried it hither back to my liege and lord. Alive he was still wielding his wits. The wise old man spake much in his sorrow, and sent you greetings, and bade that ye build, when he breathed no more, on the place of his balefire, a barrow high, memorial mighty. Of men was he worthiest warrior wide earth over, the while he had joy of his jewels and burg. Let us set out in haste now, the second time, to see and search this store of treasure, these wall-hid wonders. The way I show you, where gathered near ye may gaze your fill at broad-gold and rings. Let the bier, soon made, be all in order when out we come, our king and captain to carry thither, man beloved, where long he shall bide safe in the shelter of sovran God. Then the bairn of Weohstan bade command, hardy chief, to heroes many that owned their homesteads, hither to bring firewood from far, o'er the folk they ruled, for the famed one's funeral. Fire shall devour and wan flames feed on the fearless warrior who oft stood stout in the iron shower, when sped from string a storm of arrows shot o'er the shield-wall. The shaft held firm, featly feathered, followed the barb. And now the sage young son of Weohstan 7 chose of the chieftain's thanes, the best he found that band within, and went with these warriors, one of 8, under hostile roof. In hand one bore a lighted torch and led the way. No lots they cast for keeping the hoard when once the warriors saw it in hall, altogether without a guardian, lying there lost. And little they mourned when they had hastily haled it out, dear-bought treasure. The dragon they cast, the worm, o'er the wall for the wave to take, and surges swallowed that shepherd of gems. Then the woven gold on a wain was laden, countless quite, and the king was borne, hoary hero, to Hronesness. Then fashioned for him the folk of Geats, firm on the earth, a funeral pile, and hung it with helmets and harness of war, and breastplates bright, as the boon he asked. And they laid it amid the mighty chieftain, heroes mourning their master dear. Then on the hill, that hugest of balefires, the warriors wakened. Wood smoke rose black over blaze, and blent was the roar of flame with weeping. The wind was still, till the fire had broken the frame of bones, hot at the heart. In heavy mood their misery moaned they, their master's death. Wailing her woe, the widow old, her hair upbound, for Beowulf's death sung in her sorrow, and said full oft she dreaded the doleful days to come, death's enow and doom of battle and shame. The smoke by the sky was devoured. The folk of the Weders fashioned there on the headland a barrow broad and high, by ocean-farers descried. In 10 days' time their toil had raised it, the battle-braves' beacon. Round brands of the pyre a wall they built, the worthiest ever that wit could prompt in their wisest men. They placed in the barrow that precious booty, the rounds and the rings they had reft erewhile, hardy heroes, from hoard in cave, trusting the ground with treasure of earls, gold in the earth, wherever it lies useless to men, as of yore it was. Then about that barrow the battle keen rode, atheling born, a band of 12, lament to make, to mourn their king, chant their dirge, and their chieftain honor. They praised his earlship, his acts of prowess worthily witnessed. And well it is that men their master friend mightily laud, heartily love, when hence he goes from life in the body forlorn away. Thus made their mourning the men of Geatland, for their hero's passing his hearth companions, quoth that of all the kings of earth, of men he was mildest and most beloved, to his kin the kindest, keenest for praise. End of Section 8. End of Beowulf, translated by Francis Barton Gummere.